Without the button, people would mumble, "That 12-year-old kid is so immature. He must not be right in the head." With the button, they would whisper, "That 6-year-old is freakishly huge." And really what they were probably thinking is, "That poor kid, his mother's a liar. There's no way he's 6. You guys all know how much he liked to goof around and laugh. And that didn't just start in high school or college. He was a funny little kid. I can't really tell the best stories here because to me the funniest stories happened when he was first learning to talk. It turned out Todd was a virtuoso with profanity. When I was 14 or 15, I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. He was just starting to talk and he could drop swear words into just every sentence. And he used them appropriately. He knew if he needed a verb, or if he needed an adjective, or if it was just a term of endearment. I can tell you his mother did not think it was funny. More than once, I was sent out of the room, out of the house, out of the mall. I was sent out the door a lot because I couldn't stop laughing. And Todd loved stand-up, so even as a little kid, I just inspired him to go further. So every time Todd got in trouble, I got in trouble. He would be sent to his room, I would be banished to the outdoors or the basement. I used to ask his mom, "How can you not laugh at that? That's comedy gold." And I know he learned a lot of it from his dad, who will say I'm lying, but we know where he learned to swear. It's just that to pick it up at that young age, I thought he was a prodigy. I know I don't have to tell you guys about Todd at all. Everyone knew exactly who he was within 5 minutes of meeting him. There was no hidden agenda, no games. Maybe that's the big advantage to being huge. You can just be yourself and everybody else can figure out where they fit in around you. When the term toxic masculinity started making the rounds a couple of years ago, I remember thinking, why are they picking on my family? They're not hurting anyone. Looking at the men in this group, at my brothers, at Todd's sons, doesn't look toxic to me. Todd was kind to everyone who needed it. He was always there for friends. He never forgot a birthday. He felt responsible for everyone he knew. After his brother Scott died a few years ago and left a daughter behind, without 1 second of hesitation, Todd let Melissa know that he was her dad now. He couldn't have loved her more. I remember him talking about her several years ago, and he said, "Boy, that girl really lights up a room, doesn't she? Something about her just sparkles." Todd was supposed to be the next elder, the next patriarch in this family. But now the next shepherd patriarchs are only in their early 20s. I have every confidence that when it's their time, they've got this. This family is in excellent hands. Riley, Kyle, Eric, you guys are amazing to me. He loved you more than words can say, and in fact, I think he loved you so much it surprised him. By the way, all 3 of them, freakishly tall. Kyle and Eric give me a hard time because I always call them by the wrong name. And while I'm confessing, I always call Eric Riley. But in my defense, from my angle, all I see are chins. You guys all look exactly the same to short people. And if I ever call any of you by the right name, it's a mistake. Pure luck. We all lost a different Todd on February 21st. A lifelong friend, a son, a father, a nephew, a cousin, an uncle. He was somehow able to be exactly the Todd we all needed when we needed him. And now it seems impossible and wrong that he's not here. But he would be happy to see all of you having a drink, being stupid, enjoying this day. He would have had more fun than anyone. There's a lovely quote from Romeo and Juliet. Shakespeare wrote, "When he shall die, take him and cut him out in little stars, and he will make the face of heaven so fine that all the world will be in love with night and pay no worship to the garish sun." To all of you, from his dad, from his Uncle Ted, from the Shepherds, and from the Malones, we are sorry you've lost your friend, your brother, your partner in crime. We know your hearts are every bit as broken as ours. And to everyone here, for loving him all these decades, for telling your stories as long as you're able, for being his comrades and guardians, and for watching over him diligently for the last year. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Tony. Thank you so much. To us, you'll always be huge and Tony. Todd's dad is here, Terry Shepherd. When Todd and I were teens, he used to give me haircuts. You remember that? Well, that last one really stuck. Yes. Todd's family is here. Riley, his oldest son, Kyle and Eric, who are twins, and their mom, Susan Shepherd. I can never remember which one of you is Susan. It's a twin reference. This could be any of you up here right now, sharing your laughs and your loving stories about Todd. In about 5 minutes, it will be open mic and your chance to share anything you like within the realm of parental guidance. But first, I have in my hand some inspiring and true Todd tidbits that I want to make sure I share with you. When the doctor gave Todd the diagnosis that would have shocked or floored most mortals, Todd responded stoically with a huh, as one might to an everyday mild curiosity or surprise. Susan is nodding her head. She was there for this. He told me of that moment many times. I knew the punchline. His innate intelligence and strong will kicked right in. He had an inspiring role model, too. Todd told me that his grandfather, upon facing his own mortality, proclaimed, "It's been a great life." Todd lived and embodied this same message. He did not feel shortchanged. He had a great life because he created a great life for himself and his family, and he shared it with his friends and his loved ones. And we were not shortchanged, because Todd served his purpose in our lives hugely. When Todd made up his mind about anything, it was a done deal. Once he decided he wanted to run a triathlon. So on a cold March 3rd, we ran the Lake Pleasant Triathlon together, and a few impressions stand out about that day. The water was 49 degrees. Out of hundreds of entrants, only Todd wore a tank top style shorty wetsuit. He was ripped, sporting bleached blonde hair. With his tattooed arms and shoulders exposed, he looked like a 6'5" Billy Idol on the mug. Right after the race, he said, "I'm never doing another one." And 2 weeks later, he sold his bike because he didn't even want to look at it. He did reach both of his goals, though, on pure willpower, completing a triathlon and never running another one again. He used to say nothing is so sacred you can't make some humor out of it. Think about all the times you made him laugh and all the times he made you laugh. You'll always have those to start you smiling and keep you smiling on the inside. Todd was division vice president of a publicly traded company. The CEO's nickname for him was Commander. Once in a financial reporting group phone call, Todd went for a big laugh. To justify their underperformance, the VPs from other regions had opened their call with, "I'm sure you all heard about the hurricane that hit Texas, and I'm sure you all heard about the hurricane that hit Florida." When it was Todd's turn, he opened with, "I'm sure you all heard about the hurricane that hit Phoenix." For those of you that don't check the weather news, we do not get hurricanes here, but that is the dry sense of humor that Todd had, and he said it hung out there for a painfully long time before everybody finally burst into laughter and it was classic Todd. He is so truly loved by all his friends. As word slowly began to spread of his impending Earth exit, so many of you reached out to have more moments, touch base, connect, and show your propensity for loving Todd Shepherd. He felt your love, and he was grateful for it. Something Todd said to me before he passed, "I'm living of cancer." It's the exact opposite of what everybody else would say. It made me laugh, but he didn't mean it just comedically. He could flip things like that. It was part of his mindset not to give power to the disease. It could take his body and his life, but not his sense of humor or his dignity. Todd will always be one of a kind. The touch of his presence, his essence, his humor, and caring will live on. When you feel inspired by his courage, remember his ability to laugh, or practice his polite style of kindness, you honor his life and his memory, and you share it like ripples flowing out as a tribute to loving Todd Shepherd. I want to call your attention to 7 sentences, which you'll also be taking home in your program. The luxury to have had at least one teacher who drove you to think and work harder than you knew you could. The joy of having an amazing woman who loves me just for me. The beauty of having children who grow up to make you proud. The security of having a great career to be able to provide for your family. The comfort of knowing you have more of everything than you'll ever need. The awareness to know I'm a flawed human being and to approach people with that in mind. The majesty to have laid my eyes on some of the most beautiful and historical things in the world. Those are Todd's words. He wrote them when he was not long for this world, and his perspective was noble, humble, grateful, and profoundly focused on what really matters. He owned the last year of his life in the way few people own any years, which is how he owned his entire life, career, and family. With respect to living a successful life, Todd's dad once said to Todd's sons, "It's not as easy as your dad makes it look." A high compliment Todd enjoyed and deserved. He told me on more than one occasion, "The thing I'm most proud of is my family." Todd was huge, rich, handsome, the king of inside jokes, smart, funny, genuine, a fantastic friend, and by all accounts, a great, thoughtful, and beloved father. He was independently minded, had no regrets, fearless in the face of death, called his own shots, and died like a hero going home. I know if he was here now, he'd tell you, it's all true, and that I probably understated how awesome he is. And he would flash that cool Todd Shepherd smile that he'll now be smiling forever after. Rest in peace, brother. It's time for open mic and to make it a party. David Wilson, everybody.
All right, so I'm David Wilson, as I was introduced. I've been friends with Todd since 5th grade. I think he came to school the last 2 weeks of school, which is an odd time to start. I would have skipped it, but he did. He did come, and Todd was a 6-foot 5th grader. We had another 6-foot 5th grader, Steve Palmer, and Todd was getting a lot of attention, and Palmer's going to get it on the playground. But he was really getting a lot of attention at the start of it, and people, what's your name? So I had come up to Todd and got his name, but I guess I yelled, his name's Todd, so leave him alone. And that's really Todd's story that he would tell that when we were together. But I became friends with Todd since then. But a couple of things I can share with Todd. So 8th grade, our whole 8th grade class, for some reason, was bad, naughty, disrespectful in shop class. We had a brand new shop teacher, and it was bad, and we'd walk into class, and everybody would turn on all the equipment, and the room's humming. They turn the sinks on, they throw the screwdrivers in the ceiling. I mean, so I don't know why that was, but Todd's like, I got the teacher's phone number, I prank called him. So that was 8th grade, didn't seem so bad. But the bad part of that story is in college, where I ran into Todd at ASU, where it's kind of reminiscence. He goes, oh yeah, I called the shop teacher last week. Okay, time to be done with that. People might not know, Todd was a undefeated heavyweight boxer. And I think it was leading up to senior year in high school. And I remember his first match, it was a 3-round match, and he had a really good group of us cheering him on. And I remember the announcer, before they decided the decision of who won this fight, he said, both of you guys need to learn how to get in shape. They weren't prepared for the fight, but Todd did win that fight, and I took credit, or the group of us took credit for the win, half of it, because we were cheering him. We weren't going to let him lose. But his record was 1-0, and he was done with that. Senior year in high school, leading up to football, we'd all get our hairs buzzed. But Todd kind of jacks it up a little bit. You've probably seen the Mohawk photo. But what you probably don't even see, he ended up bleaching the bottom of it blonde. So very noticeable. He had 6'5" Mohawk blonde hair. And then I remember him going to the Dillard's where my wife, now girlfriend, then worked, just to go say hi. And she's getting a ruckus with all the workers. Look at the guy coming in. Look at the guy coming in, you know. So, that's a friend of mine. But when all this happened with Todd, I started to reflect a little bit on, what was Todd? Like, what were the things that I kind of think about him? I know he loved his guitar. He loved his guns. He had an arsenal of guns. It's where you want to go for anarchy. He had over to Todd's house because he had a safe full of guns. He got the motorcycle, loved the motorcycle. But what I think about Todd is his kindness. And it's funny, everybody here, when I talk to somebody, they kind of reference the same thing. Todd was so kind. He was really a nice guy. And maybe I didn't realize that along the way sometimes until I kind of thought it through a little bit. And he just really had a good heart. And he was so kind to everybody and always up for a good time. And the last really positive moment I shared with Todd was in December. I think December 15th. I had a 2-hour phone call with Todd. And the first 15 minutes, he was sharing all his struggles with me. And it was, how the struggles, and he was sharing with me and telling me the things he's going through. But then we spoke for over an hour and a half, and it seemed like high school. And we were just talking about old times. And he kind of caught me up a little bit on things I'd forgotten about him and everything. But just to kind of, in the conversation where he's talking about certain people, he texted me a picture of his son, Kyle, at a breakfast, and there's a breakfast with 4 people there. And I get the photo, and he says, yeah, Kyle crushed that meal by himself. It was just funny for him. He could just take joy out of everything. So, I'm going to miss Todd, and I'm definitely a better person for knowing him. And, the thing I remember, though, he was just kind to everybody.
All right, I know there's more people for open mic than David. Come on, get up there, everybody. All right.
Thank you all for your presence tonight and throughout the last few weeks throughout all of this. It is in times like these where support around you makes all the difference. And the words that I say are not nearly as enough to express my gratitude, our family's gratitude, and everybody's gratitude for what we are doing tonight. Today, we are gathered to celebrate the life, relish in memories, and light the eternal flame of love for my father, ToddShepherd. He was a dad to myself and 2 brothers who were not quite as handsome as me, but they're close enough. A son to an incredible mother and father, now granddad. A brother, a husband, ×2. and a friend who knew how to live every day like a rock star. Apart from the million times he would travel to either Italy or Las Vegas, I would go to his house only to find he had purchased 2 new guitars, 10 new guns, 2 cats even, as well as a motorcycle, because why not? I mean, ToddShepherd, you can get away with all that stuff. Todd was somebody who took pride in his accomplishments, big or small, whether it was accomplishing the military press record at his high school, that one single kill who would get a game of Call of Duty, or his undefeated record against me in arm wrestling. Even when he wanted me to win, I just could not beat him. At the end of the day, he would have a smile on his face and a determination to achieve something even better the next day, so he could brag to myself and everybody else he knew until time would end. My father opened many doors in my life. He gave me my first ear-numbing concert experiences. He guilted me into trying foods which I did not enjoy 90% of the time. He enabled me to learn the guitar and introduced me to some badass music. And he helped me see the beauty of the world as well as shooting in the desert. He challenged me to persevere in frustrating situations, whether it was learning the F chord on the guitar, and a lot of F-bombs were dropped in those F chord challenges, as well as at one time I got the wind knocked out of me in flag football, and he rushed to me, patting me, to force me to get up, and I did get up. At the top of the list, though, is that he shared many lessons on how to better myself and how to succeed in the game that is life. One of the factors that determines success is how you are able to power through adversity. My dad was somebody who knew how to fight like a warrior throughout his entire life in any given situation. And seeing him battle cancer without flinching strengthens this case. You can only go on as long as you choose to, and my father chose to fight and kick ass until the very end. He fought to ensure that we would place one last memory into the library that is our hearts and our minds. His tenacious attitude in any given situation is what will stick with me the most. That and the handsomeness that he's most kindly bestowed upon me. While it can be easy to have sudden sorrows and regrets spring up in the midst of his passing, these cannot take away from the many new and recurring experiences that we shared with all of us. It is never easy to say goodbye to somebody we hold so dearly in our hearts, but there was a glimpse of reassurance knowing that he lived a life only the way ToddShepherd would. As they say, life is an open book, and ToddShepherd was somebody who probably needs to add a couple of thousand more pages to fully illustrate his life story. He left this earth with a resume that would make any of us envious, and he adds more to it in spirit every single day. I will always be thankful for the time we had together, and the stories I will treasure forever. I will continue to live out my life the way with the anecdotes he shared to me by him, and I will always be proud to call ToddShepherd my dad. Excuse the stutters. He gave me a very... I won't go into detail. It's the handsomeness, I feel. Moving on from the more sincere stuff, I would like to name 3 instances from when he was a kid, and of course, when you're a little child, you can get away with anything you want. And if he had done this any older, I think people would have given him the eyebrow raise. Right, this is him at 3.5 years old. Do we get butter from butterflies? His mom replied, no. He then asked, are butterflies made from butter? Another no. And then he asked, well, why do they call them butterflies? And this is him at 3 years old. Todd said he was going to marry me. This is what his mom wrote. Todd said he was going to marry me when he grew up. I replied that I was already married to Daddy. Without a moment's hesitation, he said, all right, I will marry Batman. So Mom, I know you haven't done or said anything that might indicate that you are Batman, but I think that would be a great time to listen to you. And lastly, this is him at 6 years old. We were in a long line at the post office during the Christmas rush. To help pass the time, I suggested to Todd that he look at the FBI wanted posters. He went to the other end of the building and looked at them for a few minutes. Suddenly, he shouted at the top of his lungs, "Hey Mom, this one looks just like Daddy." So I don't know what you could have done to get on that list right now, but you have done a very good job at not getting caught. So kudos to you. Thank you again for coming tonight, guys, and go Bears.
All right, I know there's more people. Good. Steve Palmer.
Good evening. I feel like I should say, Mr. Chairperson, fellow members and guests, everybody take speech with Mrs. Knack. Rest in peace, Mrs. Knack. Anyways, I told my wife I wasn't going to do this, but I feel like there's some things that need to be said for the kids and everybody else that may not have known us. First of all, not that I have an ego or anything, but I was the 6-footer. He was the other 6-footer. So, 5th grade comes up and they're like, Homer, you got competition, other big guys here. And I'm like, okay. And sure enough, here comes Todd. What's up? What's up? And, we got to know each other well, and we were different athletes. He was huge, and I was paltry. So we got to know each other through grade school and everything. And one story, like our freshman year of football, we walked in there, we thought we were pretty badass guys and stuff. We were going to roll over everybody. And so the coach let me play running back. He always wanted me to run back. And we played 10 post in, and we got smoked. And I was sitting in the locker room, and I had welts all over my back. I had like 13 carries, 26 yards, and I was beat up. And I'm like, coach comes up, and I had a pretty good relationship. I think he dated my mom, but I'm not sure. He goes, how you feeling, Paul? And I'm like, I'm beat up. And he's like, I know, our line sucks head. I didn't say it, he said it to me. As we grew up, our line, we got a couple guys here that played line, worked so hard because they love football, and Todd loved football too. And Mr. Shepherd, we thank you for taking all the video, because some of us still watch some of the games and stuff. But one thing you can always see, Todd loved football so much, he was always the first guy that busted through the cheerleader signs and stuff. It's like, the Saber Cats, and there's 70 running through the signs and stuff. He's always the first guy. Watch the touchdowns, who's the first guy jumping up and down? And it's always ToddShepherd. And he loved it and stuff. So, and he got big, and he got huge, and he worked hard, and became a good player, a good athlete, and that was pretty much my main memories of high school with Todd. Fortunately, we got to have a birthday party. Thank Bridget, Dwayne, and Eileen for putting on a birthday party for him probably 12 months ago on his birthday. And I got to share a couple Maker's Marks with him and stuff. So that was good. Good way to remember him. So I don't really have much more to say, but I thought you guys know that he was a hardworking guy, and he outgrew me. But we were good friends, and from 5th grade on, what are you in 5th grade? Probably 12? So, been a long time. So, he'll be best, and I think he's in a better place, and good to see the Hornadays, Mr. Shepherd, and everybody else. So, thank you all.
Hi, my name is Dwayne Douglas, and I first met Shepherd freshman year in high school. A group of us from Kiva, Pueblo, Mojave all became great friends. And it's cool, all these years later, 40 plus years, here we are. I always tell my own children, in life you'll have acquaintances, but then you'll have friends. And they're the ones that, stick with you thick and thin, year after year. When we were freshmen in high school, they had 2 football teams. They had an A team and a B team. And the B team was for guys who were weight challenged, small. Right, yeah, me. I know what you're thinking, Pete, but I still don't weigh enough to play in the A team. So after practice, we get to hang out with the A-team guys, and we're all good friends, and we do stuff after school, and parties and whatnot. But fast forward to junior varsity, there's no B team, man. You're either on the team or you're off the team. So I made the JV team, but I was probably the lightest guy on the team. Hell, I don't think I weighed 135 pounds then. So you'd start the season with these 2-a-day practices in the summer. You'd have a practice at like 6 in the morning, then another one at, I don't know, what was it, Wilson, like 3 in the afternoon, 4 or 5. It's hotter than hell out. So you go for a couple of weeks, and then after a few weeks of practice, you finally go to full pads. So when you go to full pads, like the first thing they do are 1 to 2 drills. It's basically these one-on-one drills where they figure out who the alpha males are. So it'd be like 2 guys just ramming each other forward on, or they'd form one line where you'd be the defense tackling, and another line where you'd be the offensive guy with the football. So I end up in the line of offense to happen to be the guy that carries the football. So you're in the line, it's 105 degrees out, you're sweating, it just sucks. And as you're about 10 back, you're kind of looking at the other line, seeing, okay, who's going to tackle me? And then you start seeing it's about 5 guys, and I'm looking like, oh shit, it's Shepherd. I'm like, this is going to be a long season. So, as we get closer and closer, I'm just looking, he used to wear this mask. This thing must have had like 3 or 4 crossbars. It looked like he had the electric. And as it gets to like 4, 3, and 2, all I'm thinking is about how bad I'm going to get my ass kicked. And so sure enough, it's like, go, I run with the ball, and just kaboom, he just absolutely pancakes me, flat on my back. And all I remember is as he's pushing himself off me, he's got that, charming ToddShepherd smile, but that stupid laugh. And I'm like, dude, you're laughing? Do you know how much pain I'm in? But I will say this, after he pounded me down, and that wasn't the first time during the season in practice that he would do that, he would be the first guy to pick me up. So metaphorically, even though he could beat me down, he was always the first one to pick me up. And on the team, I was second string. And the few times I got in, I just remember being in the huddle and looking at him and going, thank God I got that guy in front of me on this play. But I love him, miss him dearly. One of the last times we got to hang out together, just his sense of humor was classic. We had a bottle of Maker's Mark. So we opened up the bottle, and I probably had a glass, this big, and I proceeded to pour mine to about here. And he takes the bottle and pours his, probably no higher than mine right now. I'm like, dude, what are you thinking? He goes, Dwayne, what, is it going to kill me? You got a good point there. You're unbelievable. Anyway, just driving here today, I'm thinking, it's so crazy in this world, there's so much madness, but there's so much beauty and so much joy. And there was so much of that in him, and, it's just beautiful to be here after all these years, brought together by his friendship. So let's raise a glass. Todd, we love you. God bless you. You're with us forever. You. Thanks. You.
Somebody's thinking about getting up and going to the microphone. They are.
Probably don't know me, I'm Dave. I worked with Todd at the Gold Rush. And we knew each other in a couple of ways. I came out here to go to law school, and I got a job coaching at Saguaro football. At the same time, I got a job at this bar, and the doorman, who was Todd. And we, through talking, I found out he played at Saguaro, so we had that connection. And so that's who I am, and with a group of people from the Gold Rush. Trying to think. One of the things that's always been said was the thing everybody loved about Todd was who he was. Todd never tried to be somebody else. He never thought he was better than anybody else. But goddamn, he knew nobody was better than him. And I love that about him. Here's the only story I'll tell is the one that, it's the image I always had. Todd was our doorman. And so obviously when they came in, people were well behaved when they saw Todd. And Todd had a great sense of humor, and Todd was very good at his job. And he could spot a fake ID like nothing. And so, but it wasn't just enough for Todd to see CK come in as a fake ID. Of course, Todd had to take it to the moment. And I would literally, sit at the door waiting for somebody to come in for fake ID, because there's the beauty of someone's face when they find out they've been called. But Todd had a way of doing it. Todd would do this, he'd take the card, he'd look at it, he'd look at them, he'd look at this, and he'd look at them, and he'd stand there and go, he'd hand it out and he'd go, have a good evening. And they would go to take it, and he would crumble it right as they were. And then he would smile, and he goes, you're not getting it. And it was just his way of doing that. That was Todd. So we had a blast. I lived on Starlight Way, and when we weren't working, we were hanging out, and 40 years later, we were best friends. And like you, I'll miss him. Thank you. I gotta say one more thing. I was so fortunate to spend the last couple of weeks with Todd. And I'll tell you the one thing that we spoke of the most, and I always went to that because it lifted him up. It just, everything else was going on went away. And that was these boys. I got a son I love, but I'll never be able to say, man, he loved his sons more than your dad loved you guys. I'm telling you what, it was just, I was so proud of him because he was the father he wanted to be. You guys were the world to him. He worked every day to live up to your expectations. Again, if anything ever, it's God bless you boys for what you did for that man. Thank you.
All right, first girl to speak, except for Aunt Tony. I too worked with Todd at the Gold Rush. I'm going to just trail Dave with that. By the way, I think Todd thought I was his favorite. And I only say that because I think he made everyone in here think that he was your favorite friend. He had that way about him. I got to hang out with him a few times in those last few weeks, and I met his boys. I have some great stories. Not what you think. One of the first nights I hung out with him, I said, catch me up to speed, because we would only meet up every once in a while and run into each other. And I said, tell me a story about each of your boys. So, not in any order. I don't even know if I remember them because I've had a margarita or two. But we'll go with that. Riley. When he was young, I guess one night, Todd was maybe not parenting as well as he thought he should have been. And Riley might have had a Spider-Man obsession. Thought he could be Spider-Man. Was playing around, jumping, kind of leaping walls. He made it sound like you were tying yourself to the wall and pulling yourself up. I don't know. And he said that you fell and cut a chin. Had that scar to this day. I don't know if he could have actually taken you to the hospital that night. I didn't ask questions, I was just getting stories because, you like to hear stuff about your kids and you like to hear about. But he remembers it every time he looked at your scar. Yeah, you're going to be next. You know. His most memorable or thought about Kyle was that age 19, you knew exactly what you wanted to be. You are pursuing it like there's no tomorrow. You're hitting all those marks. I don't think he could be prouder than you about that. It's amazing, because I knew Todd when he was your age. Mexican Todd, as you might see some of those pictures. But good job. Awesome. I don't know how many people at age 19 can hold it on. And Eric, who I think you think like your dad when you think like me, and it's kind of weird, but anyway. When he was going through chemo, when he was going through chemo, you sat with him, and he said there might have been edibles involved with him.
Only him.
I know that's shocking, but okay. He said you were sitting there and laughing to the point you were all in tears. The nurses were looking at you. He finally tried to stop it a couple times, but couldn't. Only because nobody should be having that much fun there. But having that time with you was awesome. Just living it, laughing to the point of tears. And he remembered it. So you were there at that point. I had notes, and I don't think I have them anymore. Again, the margaritas. We'll just go back to that. I know we all think of Todd as something special. I do have pretty words. That's not it. You don't want those addresses. Yeah, see Dave jumped up here before I knew it. Sorry, guys. Funny stories about him, but I won't share those. Like when he folded up in the back of my Volkswagen Bug. We did a road trip to California, and he was in thirds in the back seat trying to sleep until someone threw guacamole at my windshield, and then we couldn't see anymore. That's the kind of stuff I remember. I had a really nice. Oh, not gonna happen. I'm just playing on my phone, being notes being rude. But you boys were very important. We all remember him as great. I don't think we could have had a better friend. Until we meet again, Todd. I know you're beaming at this project. That's what you want.
Let's see if I can do better, Eileen. Hi, I'm Betsy, Todd's cousin from Chicago. When I said that to Eileen last week, I burst into tears. Oh my computer going. They sent the wrong person for my family because I'm the crier. So, bear with me here. I'm a year younger than Todd, and then there's my sister Christine and my brother Michael, and they couldn't be here with us today. But I wanted to just share a couple things. First, from my sister. It's not long, so. And I threw some pictures up on the table. I wouldn't put them on the table here, but so my mom is Lynn's sister, and they both had this crappy cancer gene. So this is from my sister. When I moved to San Francisco in 2010, Todd was one of the first people to jump a flight and visit. What I remember the most from this week together was laughing at the small mundane things like our awful tour guide on the double-decker bus and the amount of Maker's Mark we consumed on a daily basis was frightening. And the funny thing about that was that Todd gave my sister, Christine, her nickname, Christine Whiskey, because of course, whiskey rhymes with Christine, right? We lived in Downers Grove, and we were about 5 minutes away from my grandparents. And Todd and Scott, when they lived in Chicago, they were a little further north. And of course, you know, it's fun to live with siblings, but we would always be so excited for Todd and Scott. Every Sunday we had dinner at my grandparents'. We'd be sitting there waiting for Todd and Scott to arrive, and finally they'd get there and they'd be banished to the bedrooms because of course they got in a fight on the way down. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you just got here. They'd get their mouth washed out with soap. You'd be like, oh man. Uncle Todd, that was his nickname. You guys all called him Huge, but we called him Uncle Todd. And as Tony mentioned, you know, he was big for his age, and my Aunt Lynn literally had to carry around his birth certificate to prove his age. Like when we go to the amusement park or whatever it was, the movie theater, like, I swear this is how old he is. And so that's just a little bit about my sister's notes, and then I just wanted to add a little bit from my brother. So having two sisters, Todd and Scott, were the brothers that my brother never got to have. I'm gonna have to skip that. But I have some really funny videos if anyone wants to come look at them on my phone later. And we're just gonna go with that. And I have a lot of inside jokes, but they're only, none of them would get them, so it's not even worth mentioning. But they're hilarious. But the two, you get the three of them together, Todd and Scott and my brother, and it was better than any sitcom. You would just sit there and your sides would be, you know, your cheeks would be sore. And then three of them would just feed off of each other, and our family knows because you would see the three of them together and would just be cracking up. And you'll see a picture of Todd and my brother. Todd came to visit my mom when she was terminally ill, and we're Lithuanian. I don't know if you know about bacon buns or bun cookies, if you've ever had them. But there's a Saturday Night Live skit with John Belushi, cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Okay. Todd and my brother, and I have the video if you want to watch it, but you'll see a picture. They did the skit for my mom, and it's kind of based on Lithuanian stuff. My grandma used to make carrot juice as soon as you walk in on the Sunday night dinners. Here's your carrot juice. It's like, thanks. I hate carrot juice to this day. But they did a version of that Saturday Night Live, cheeseburger, 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 but it was Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, no Pepsi, carrot juice. You have to see the video. Again, the inside story, it doesn't compute. But that's about my brother. And I'm going to tell a story that is from me. Again, there's a million, but it's like watching home videos, only when we get the inside jokes. So one time, we would always come out here for our spring breaks, and Todd and you guys always had to suffer through. So I have a million pictures of us tying eggs at your house with the kids. And I sent my daughter back home with my parents, and I had an extra days off, a few days from work. So I worked for the airlines, and I was at the gate boarding my daughter, and we were standing in line getting her something to eat for the flight. And I looked down, and there's a $100 bill. And stepped on it. No one seemed to be claiming it, and I'm like, all right. And my friend had just, from Chicago, just moved out here, and she had been married, and Todd and I were going to treat her to Ernie's karaoke, which is what we love to do with my siblings and Todd and Scott when we were always out here. That was our thing. And there's photos of that out here too. Todd killed it, of course. And so after I boarded my daughter, I was going to go back and join Todd the next day, and we were going to go meet my friend and her husband. So of course I'm like, drinks are on Betsy, $100 bill at the airport. And you know it's going to be a good time when you have to take a cab to Ernie's because you're already drunk. So we were at Ernie's, and we're having a good time, and I hear Piano Man, someone's singing Piano Man. And of course, Todd and I are already, drinking our liquors. And I'm like, did that guy just sing Pirate Piano Man? And we start in with, dar, da, dar, da, da, dar, dar, da, dar, da, dar. And it goes on and on and on again. It's kind of an inside joke, but it was hilarious. About a year later or so, I get this t-shirt in the mail. Todd traveled a lot. And it's something pirate, word crossword puzzle from Todd. And then the joke went on. This went on for years. I'd see something pirate when I would be on vacation. I'd mail it to Todd, and he'd see something pirate and mail it back to me. And that kind of became our thing. And so I will always be fond of pirates because of Todd. So I just want everyone to, I hope everyone has a cousin that you think of as a friend and a brother and a pirate. That's all.
Hi, my name is Rob, and I was friends with Todd for 20 years. And everybody in this room knows how much love Todd had for everyone. His 3 boys, I felt like I was the lucky one that any leftover love he reserved for me. Because I was one of his buddies that he was a little bit past some of the things I was doing by the time I came up. I was 13 years younger than Todd. But you guys all know that Todd liked to clown around. So it was a nice match, him and I, because right at the time when I thought Las Vegas was heaven, he still really liked it. So we would go up there a lot. And I was young, and you can imagine, I'd go up there and I'd go, oh my gosh, why doesn't everybody just move here? And he would kind of be my guardian. And he had already done everything that I could ever want to do. Todd was the coolest guy he's the coolest guy I've known. So I just want to tell you one funny thing because he'd want me to tell you this. And I think I threatened him that I would tell this at some point. But we went to Vegas, and whatever. It was somewhere between 2002 and 2016. And we were there, and Todd was meticulous. You heard the fake ID story. Todd was a dialed-in kind of guy. He was loose, but he was he was one of those guys who didn't keep score, but he knew the score. And, I just want to drop our stuff off in the room and go downstairs and, give him everything I have and make bad decisions. And he's got the whole system. He wants to plug in his speaker and he wants to listen to, a little bit of Man on the Silver Mountain, and he wants to have a drink. And he's telling me, don't be so anxious to go down there. We have all weekend, but I didn't listen. And, so come 2 or 3 a.m., Todd gave it a good go, but he's, 13 years older than me, and he's cooler than me, and he's smarter than me, so he's going to go to bed. And I don't go to bed in Las Vegas. I just have one of those motors. And, but I was all out of money, and all the cards told me no more, and the bank was calling me, and I tried, if you've ever been there. And I went back up to the room, and I know Todd did pretty well earlier. So I went into his wallet when he was sleeping, and I took $600, which is fine because he loved me. And I knew I could pay him back, the Friday after the next. And so I took his $600 and I went down and I lost it right away. And then I got back up to the room, and because he's meticulous, he had 2 bottles of Smart Water on his nightstand, because Todd liked to party too. And he wanted to have some Smart Water in the morning. But I got back to the room, and it'd been a long night, so I drank both of his Smart Waters, because he loves me. And I didn't lose $600, I lost $592. For some reason, I went back upstairs with $8. And I put the $8 back in his wallet. And so I didn't sleep You know, I went to bed at like 6, and he's up at 7, and he's, you know, coughing and all this stuff. He's, you know, and he looks over and he goes, "Hey, man." I go, "Hey." And I said, "Hey, I went into your wallet and I took $600, but there's 8 in there now." And if you know Todd, I mean, he's oh, "Dude, give me a minute." And he sits up on the bed and he's like, "If you took 6 and there's 8 in there, what's the problem?" I was like, "Well, I took 600 and I put 8 in there." And then right as I said that, he went to grab his smart water. You guys know Todd, he's a lot bigger than me. And he stood up, he's in his boxer shorts, and he walks past me, and I'm a little scared, Todd. And he just kind of looked at me like, "Back up." I'm walking in the bathroom, and I got it, and I backed up. And then the last part of this is, for whatever reason, my sister who's out there, Michelle, who knew Todd very well, she had something to do with our airline reservation. I don't know if she booked them for us or if she had my email address or whatever. She's done everything for me for 20 years, so she knows where I'm going and whatever. And she texted me in the morning and said, "You guys don't have a flight home." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Todd booked 2 one-ways to Vegas." Now, Todd's my coolest, most meticulous friend, so there's no way he did that. So I'm texting her, I'm like, "There's no chance he did that." So I mentioned to him as we get to the airport, I was like, "My sister thinks that we don't have a flight home." And as we're walking into security, he realized that she was right. And at this point, I just feel like I feel like it's my fault because I've done dumb things for the last 10 hours. And so we have to get out of security and we go down to the gate, and he goes up to the woman, and it's right about the time where I think he's gonna I'm in trouble with him. And he looks at the gate agent and he says, and we showed up late from flight, he said, "Hi, we're late for a flight that we never booked and we want to know how you're going to make it right." And he turned at me and he smiled, which was the point I realized I wasn't in trouble. And the last thing I want to tell you is Todd was so kind and patient with me. He was so sweet to me, and I'm a knucklehead, but he was always so patient. And when he was diagnosed, it was hard for all of us. And because he was such a guardian and he was just so wonderful to me for all these years, I thought, what can I do now for him? So I came up with the idea that it was my job to make him less scared about what he was going through. And so we spent a lot of quality time the last 14 months. And I said to him, I said, "Listen," I said, "when you get there," I said, "this is all going to go away like you know it." I said, "But you'll remain and you'll carry on." And I never lost anybody who was close to me, so I was learning this real time. And I just smiled at him and I said, "Make sure you have shit set up. Because you're going to get there first and I'm going to be there." I said, "When I get there, I want shit set up for us." And Eric and I stayed the night at his house 4 or 5 days before Todd finally passed away. And in the morning, I knew when I hugged him, I was going to Houston for 5 days' work. I knew I wasn't going to see him again. And I touched, like we put our heads together, and he looked at me and he said, "I'll get shit set up." And Todd's the coolest. So, thanks for letting me share that story.